Welcome to a brand new episode of the Post Game. I am your host Davion, and I'm joined by Emmett
Hey,
and Lillian.
Yo, yo.
How are we doing, y'all?
good.
Pretty good.
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good too. Continuing our series of that I came up with the name "Let's Talk." Look at that. Look, like just randomly popped into my head. But yeah, we're gonna continue our series today, talking about each NBA team. Today we're gonna cover one of the most laughed at teams in the NBA, the New York Knicks. Um, so starting off our conversation about the Knicks, where do we see the Knicks like being next year?
I see him.
I
Oh gosh, my thing's ringing. I see him being like somewhere in the bottom half of the playoffs or in the play-in,
or
flirting with that area because I they were the 4th seed 2 years ago and they came back with a similar team and then you know missed out on the playoffs, and so I don't really know. Like, I don't see him making a huge jump, but I also don't see him falling off at all. They're kind of the same team right now.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think that they changed enough to make a difference. I mean, unless Julius Randle goes back to his 2021 season, is the same team.
So with them adding Jalen Brunson, like, do we think he can be the Jalen Brunson from Dallas?
I mean, he can, but it's also a question of, you know, how much is his offense going to offset his defense?
Hmm.
I mean, being 6'1", even if you have one of the highest defensive IQs, there's only so much you can do physically.
Yeah.
I mean, him being in Tom Thibodeau's system helps a lot because they're already a pretty good defensive team, and just they needed like kind of you know more spread out scoring. It can't be all Julius Randle. It can't be all RJ Barrett. Someone's got to pick up the slack, and they got a lot of guys that aren't great shooters,
Yeah.
and that holds them back a little bit. So I think he has, yeah, I think he has a much bigger role over there, and a lot more will be put in his hands now that he's not with a superstar like Luka. So he could flourish.
Yeah. So it's funny. I haven't really like thought about Jalen Brunson being like added to the Knicks, and like I haven't really thought through their whole team dynamic. But like I've been saying this for since Julius Randle had that really big that season in 2021. I've been saying that like you cannot have him be your main guy because that's just the role he does not flourish in. Like that's just not something that he's built for. But if you like tag him along with like a now Jalen Brunson who can take over if he needs to and like facilitate an offense, I think you're gonna see a really big shift. And like now that Julius is gonna be their second or third option, depending on where RJ Barrett is. Um, I think you'll see that team like expand a little bit more and like just become a little bit better. I don't think they're gonna be like, deep playoff team by any means, but I do think like adding Jalen Brunson is somebody who's gonna be able to control the offense instead of letting Julius Randle just get the ball and like just do whatever he wants. I think we're gonna see a lot more. I think we're gonna see a completely different Knicks team next year.
Yeah, I think there's just some people that get paid the big bucks to do what they do.
Yeah,
So like examples could be like Mikal Bridges on the Suns. Like, he's not supposed to be the top scorer by any means or facilitator, but he's there because he knows how to shoot the ball and he knows how to
yeah,
defend the best player on the court. And so he gets 20 plus million for that. Terry Rozier for Charlotte is just a strict scorer that got paid big money recently, but he's by no means going to be the number one guy. Maybe not even the number two guy.
Yeah.
but he knows that he's supposed to go in and score the ball. So Brunson comes in because they, I would say at every position they had someone that's, could kind of stay there to start, but they didn't really have like a straight starting point guard facilitator.
Sure.
So Brunson coming in, I think is a great fit. And someone like Quickly has been playing well, but, I see him more as a Tyler Hero role, like streaky, come off the bench, provide some spark for them, while you've got someone that's, more experienced and has a better feel for all around like Brunson. So I think that, yeah, I think that the Knicks could do really well. I think they have a really balanced team, and they could surprise people like they did 2 years ago. But time will tell.
So I think it's funny that like I think the Knicks are such like laughing stocks in the NBA that like no one really like thinks of them as being like good. But like you just said, like I think when it comes to the Knicks, they don't have an identity. Like they don't know their roles. They're all just young guys out there just playing to play, and they don't have like structure or just like a motive. And so now I think once you add like someone who's been in a structural system, like with Luka, in the Mavs last season, I think he helps like build that structure and that identity for that team. I don't think he's gonna be out there like I don't think he's gonna be like the number one leader in the NBA or anything like that, but I just think he'll definitely like help them grow as a team, I think.
I do. I want to say, as much as like Jalen Brunson played with a great player like Luka, it's sort of hard to say that there's a structure in Dallas. That's very much a team that heavily relies on Luka. You get the ball, do what you're gonna do.
Mm-hmm.
But I also think when you referenced, a bunch of guys on the Knicks just sort of playing basketball to play basketball, I think a lot of that falls on Thibodeau.
Yeah.
These are young players. You're the coach. You got to make something happen to get them to fit in well together. And I'm not sure that Jalen Brunson coming in is going to make that happen. I think Thibodeau just isn't a good fit in New York. With young players, you need a coach that is willing to take charge. And we haven't seen Thibodeau do that at all in New York.
It's interesting. Like both, I mean, you could arguably say like the Knicks and the Lakers are like basically like the biggest markets in the NBA.
Yeah.
And both teams are so heavily, they always have been shooting for the stars all the time, going for that big name in free agents or trades. They don't have time for like these rebuilds per se or developing young guys. And so like for instance, the Lakers, when always been through Kobe until he retired in like 2015, I think. And then they were horrible for 4 years. No identity, just a bunch of young dudes thrown on the court. And then finally they traded their guys to get Anthony Davis, and they signed LeBron, and now they're throwing all their young assets to make it a championship run. And so that's how they build their team. And the Knicks are every single offseason, y'all know, like you see all the headlines is like, oh my gosh, like is KD coming to New York? Like Donovan Mitchell's is he getting traded to New York? Who's going to go play? And it's so funny because there's such a big market, but no free agent like in the last few years has wanted to come play. And so now like they're kind of stuck in this situation where they're just willing to gamble on any kind of talent they can get. And if Brunson's your best option, he's a great player, but that's not going to take you over the hump. Like if they're in the Donovan Mitchell sweepstakes, like go for it. Like y'all haven't had an identity big name in a while. Like why not just go for it? Because if not, it's just going to be the same old.
Exactly. And I think to your point, like just like with the Lakers, like no big name wants to go to these organizations like the Knicks or the Lakers because they don't have any picks for the next, like Lakers don't have any first round picks for the next 7 years. So why would I want to go to a team that's like not going to develop unless I'm signing a 1 or 2 year deal. And so it just doesn't make sense how. I mean, like, listen, the Lakers, but the Knicks are in New York City. They play in Madison Square Garden, one of the best and most important arenas in the NBA. Yet they have Julius Randle and a failed Kemba Walker who played last season, who were their big names. And so it's like, and I think the development is off when it comes to young talent because RJ, let's be real, RJ hasn't developed like well. I mean, like he's it's been a slow moving train, but like it's just not. It hasn't done anything of purpose. And so it's like now we're just sitting here looking at the Knicks every season, waiting for them to implode.
Yeah,
And so
100%.
yeah,
Talking about RJ Barrett, he was a guy who was supposed to come into the league and coming out of Duke, playing with Zion, playing with Cam Reddish, was supposed to make a huge impact on that Knicks team, and started off really slow, only averaging 14. But I mean, going up about 3 points a game each season, he's definitely improved, but that efficiency still isn't there. And so he's getting you 20 points a game, but is he helping the team by doing that?
yeah. And do we think it's because like they don't establish roles in New York? And it's like
I don't think New York has ever had roles.
well, yeah.
Because Melo was there. I mean, Melo had his role and nobody else did because it was just Melo.
Yeah.
And I think that I'm also worried, we're talking about Kemba Walker, undersized point guard, can get his own shot, but will also facilitate. We saw him come into New York after failing in Boston due to injuries, does nothing, gets traded away, and is now going to get bought out by the Pistons. I do worry a little bit. You see Jalen Brunson, same type of player, undersized, can score and facilitate. Can he really thrive in New York as that main point guard when he's never had to play that role for a long period of time?
Yeah, that's a good question.
I mean, I think like it would completely depend on what they give him. I mean, are they going to give him talent to work with, or are they going to give him like control of the offense? Like, I mean, there's but so much like a main guy can do because we saw Julius Randle, he went off 2 seasons ago. He was arguably one of the best players in the league, but yet you still get like blown out in the playoffs, and it's like what do you have to do to show that you have a plan? Because when the Knicks go out and play, it looks like they don't have a plan. They have no idea what they're out there doing. And so it's like whenever they figure that out, and whenever they figure out like, this is what we need to go out here and do, because we see teams like Golden State, they have a plan. We see teams like, I mean, I'm hitting back on your point about the Mavs like not having a plan. I feel like towards the end of the season, like they knew what they needed to do. They knew that Luka was going to get his shot regardless. He's going to put up 30 shots a game. That's just going to be him, period, on any team. But they also knew that they had shooters around him, and so whenever he needs to get him, I mean, and what's the guy's name? I don't know his name. Whatever. The guy who like got hot in the playoffs last year for him. Who was like shooting threes.
Finney Smith?
Yeah, Finney Smith. Yeah, he really like became their 0.2 or 0.3 like guy. I mean, he went off, he had like 20, 25 in a couple games. And like for that Mavs team, that's big. And so if they can get somebody to tag along with Jalen Brunson like that, and if I mean, because look, they have a really good like core. They have Jalen Brunson now. They have Julius Randle. They have RJ. Like that's 3 players that, like on paper, they should be really good, and on paper this should work, but it's just a matter of how it's going to work now.
Yeah, they have a balanced roster. Like they'll be fine. Like say injuries come, like they got guys. Like Cam Reddish could certainly become like a 15 plus per game scorer next year.
Yeah.
If he gets the role, like Obi Toppin could take that jump quickly.
Evan Fournier.
Miles McBride. Yeah, and any of those guys can. But you got to run the offense through someone, and if that doesn't work, then you got your second option, and you just kind of move like that. And credit where it's due, the Knicks have gotten very unlucky. They were all in on the Zion sweepstakes that was supposed to happen, and of course it doesn't, because it's the Knicks. And then they lose the lottery in 2020 and fall from what was it, like 2 or 3 down to 8, or they fell from 5 to 8 in 2020, and because the Bulls and Hornets jumped up. And then they the last 2 drafts, they've just traded their picks. They haven't even made selections, and Knicks fans are livid about that. And you also saw Leon Rose had to send a message to the fans saying, "We're sorry, but we have a plan. Sorry for trading the draft picks that we were supposed to take." So, there's been some questionable moves, some unlucky drafts and whatnot. But, I just, unless we see some huge improvements from some of these complimentary guys, I just see them staying put. I mean, they could surprise people. I wouldn't be surprised, but the East is so loaded now. This is the best the East has been in a while. So it's just going to be tough.
Yeah, I mean, the Knicks, they have, like we just said, they have a lot of depth. They have everyone there. They have potential. But now it's just making a plan and figuring out what exactly are we doing here? What exactly is our goal, our motto, our 3-year plan? Because right now it doesn't look like they have one. They don't look like they have a plan or direction about where they want to go. Oh, but yeah, so hitting on the Knicks, what's the ceiling for them this season? What's the farthest we think can go?
First round exits, if they get that far. I expect them to be a play-in team. I think they could win a game or 2 in the play-in, but I don't think they do anything against the powerhouses in the East. When you look at the East, you've got Boston, Philly, Chicago, Cleveland,
Miami.
Maybe Brooklyn. Who knows what's happening there? So I think that the East is too loaded for the Knicks to make the first round and actually get out of it.
The only way I see them maybe making it to the second round is if a team has some injuries. Say they're a 5 or 6 seed somehow, and their matchup, their star guys out. But yeah, like Lillian said, it's hard to bet on them against some of those teams that are definitely going to be in the top 4.
Yeah, I'm right there with y'all. I don't think the ceiling's very high. But with me, it's you can look at other teams and you can say, okay, who's done good this off season? Who's developed better? And so, I think because last year they were 11 in the league behind the Hornets. Has the Hornets gotten better this season? This off season?
No.
Nah.
And so they've arguably dropped. Have the Pacers, who were under them, gotten better? Not really. The Pistons, Orlando, there are 2 question marks coming into this next season. We got Washington, who I think are terrible, even though they gave Bradley Beal $250. Still terrible. So it's can the Knicks squeak up to 10 or 9? Maybe. They have actually grown instead of lost players in this offseason. But yeah, so I think I got one more question about the Knicks before I turn over to y'all. Well, I only have a question for the Knicks. I think because they are such a high market team, do you think everyone will get around the addition to Jalen Brunson? Do you think the team will allow Jalen Brunson to come in and help them? And like, who is their like established leader right now for the Knicks?
I mean, I would say the leader of that team right now is probably Derrick Rose.
Hmm.
That's
Yeah.
your veteran presence that knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily know if Derrick Rose can get all of the young guys because it's a very young team. Aside from Randall, Rose, and I can't remember the other guy.
Fournier.
They all have 4 years or less experience in the NBA.
Yeah.
So it's a very young team. I don't know if Derrick Rose can necessarily get everybody to rally behind Brunson coming in and trying to take over the leading role on the court.
I mean, do we think he'll come in and try to take over that leading position? Do you think he's gonna come in and be like, all right, y'all, I'm that guy, and so now I need y'all to come around me? Or do we think it's like more of a, hey, I'm here?
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. He was the second best option on a Western Conference Finals team last year.
Mm-hmm.
His playoff debuts, he was dropping like 41. I think he has a lot of confidence coming into next season. I wouldn't be surprised, especially because he's going to feel more at home back in New York.
Yeah, and he was if he doesn't play like that in the playoffs, like they probably lose to Utah in the first round.
Oh,
Luka
easily.
was injured like the first 3 games. And then he's been that guy for Villanova for 4 years.
Yeah.
So he has, and didn't they win a national championship?
Yeah, that one hurts. They beat Michigan.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So I don't really know what kind of a vocal leader he is on the court. I just know he's a hooper.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Randall, I've heard talks of a Lakers trade there, a Westbrook buyout, but I think he's a good second or third option on a good team. I just don't think the Knicks are he's a great fit there.
I do really wonder what happened with Randall. Coming at first All-Star season, just super hot, coming strong, but
I have an
then
answer.
but then all of a sudden no confidence the next year.
I have an answer. He's just, you cannot expect NBA players who aren't that top guy in New York City with all the media. I mean, you get criticized so much for getting put out in the first round. And you get criticized so hard that all offseason. And all the questions come is Julius Randle that top guy that entire offseason? And because he put up those numbers. But you cannot expect him to come back that next following season and be that guy if he's not that guy. And so seeing him rapidly decline, it's like you saw that he can't take that pressure.
I mean, it was
Because that's just not what he's built for.
Yeah, that is a huge drop off. Percentages, 3-point percentage went, by a whole 10% went down. That's just brutal.
So I zoned out for 2 seconds, but did you mention Russell Westbrook?
I did, yeah.
So I think if he, just theoretical here, if he went to New York with Jalen Brunson along and he came off the bench, because I don't think he would start. I just don't think he would. Do we think, because he would make himself the leader to that team, but does he push those young kids over that hump?
No.
Nah.
Because he did, listen, think about it, because he did do it in Washington.
Yeah, but he wasn't like the only veteran on that team. He still had Bradley Beal with him.
I understand. But there's other veterans. Well, not many, but there's kind of other veterans on the Knicks.
There's like 3.
Barely for sure.
He was a good teammate in Washington. He the people said that he was a good teammate.
I don't think his ego can handle coming off the bench.
Well, he's gonna listen. If he doesn't put up this year, he's gonna be screwed. Simple. He is not gonna be picked up by any team for anything other than a veterans minimum. Simple.
I mean, at the end of the day, he knows he's a Hall lock. I don't think he cares.
I mean, think about it. I think realistically, something that was more likely to happen out of everything we're saying is that he doesn't have a good season next year, and then he gets picked up by the Knicks the following year.
I wouldn't be super surprised if Utah picked him up. If Utah trades away Donovan Mitchell and all they have sitting there is Mike Conley, it's not like they've got anything going for him.
I mean, you're bringing in draft picks after draft picks. I don't see why not. I think they're starting to work that market of like they're going to do what some of these young teams are doing right now, and they're going to go and get some draft picks and just really work the market with that. And so I don't know though. The Knicks are a team to definitely be like looking out for next season, and especially for the rest of free agency. I think there's a couple more moves that they can make. Maybe Kevin Durant, maybe Kyrie Irving. Stretch on that, but like no one. Donovan Mitchell is probably the more likely out of the three I just named.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll just have to wait and see what happens because no one knows what the Knicks are gonna hold or what their structure is gonna be next year, except the Knicks. So, but yeah, before closing out, like, is there anything else you want to say about the Knicks?
I hope they're. I mean, the last thing I'll say is like, I hope their fan base can just kind of respect like the push they kind of made to win. I guess like getting Brunson. Like I'm sure like any person be like, oh, it's an overpay, but it's a push to try and get in the playoffs and make some noise. So. Like I remember the fans were just they were booing Randall as he was having a bad game or booing RJ Barrett like on the home court. I mean, they're Knicks fans, but like I hope they can have some sort of respect for Brunson coming in and
Yeah, right. Let's be real. Knicks fans and Philly fans, they aren't normal people. They don't have that thing called respect. They want their team to win, and that's it. They don't care about anything else.
Knicks, Philly, and Boston fans, man, I don't trust them.
Boston fans are ruthless.
They will say anything and everything.
Oh yeah, they do not care at all. But I mean, I do back that too though, because like I think I'm someone who's like, when there's a new signing for any sport, I don't care if it's soccer, football, basketball, I would say give them a year to settle in, and then after that year, I think it's all like just go ahead, just whatever you want to say, you can say it, but you have to give that person that 1 year to adjust to the climate, to just the statue of where they are, and then after that, I mean, it's all she wrote. You can say whatever you want, but yeah. Lily, got anything else for the Knicks, or are you good?
I'm good.
All right. Well, this has been another installment of Let's Talk, and I mean, it's been a very good one. I think the Knicks have potential to really impress a couple people, and then we shall see about that. But the next team we'll be talking about are the Philadelphia 76ers. So yeah, though, I have appreciate y'all for listening if you made it this far. I've been your host, Davion, Lillian, Emmett, and this has been the post game. Peace.
See y'all.